Hello, and welcome to this session of working with Microsoft Power BI for Microsoft Excel users. First off, my name is Kyle Pugh. I'm going to take you into an introduction to creating a Microsoft Power BI utilizing Excel data. Now, before we jump in there and start to create our report utilizing Power BI, let's take a look at the 4 steps that we're going to walk through to take advantage of all the ins and outs of Microsoft Power BI. So let me remove my head here. There it goes. So the first 4 steps that we're going to get through here are really the foundation of Power BI. The first step of any work inside of Power BI is to get the data that you want to report off of. Step 1, you've got to have the data to create the report. So inside of Power BI, we've got loads of different types of connections that we can utilize to connect and get external data into Power BI so that we can then report off of it. Whether the data is an Excel file, some Excel workbook that may have multiple worksheets or lists inside of it. It may have a single list, a single worksheet, whatever it might be, but we can connect to that and bring the data into Power BI for reporting. It could be a simple text file like a CSV file. It could be a larger Access database or something much larger like a SQL database that I then want to connect to and bring that data in so I can report off of. So first step, get the data. Step 2, once you've got the data into Power BI, we can then utilize a tool called Power Query to begin transforming that data to fit our needs. Now, what I mean by transforming that data is you may bring, for example, an Excel workbook into Power BI. There may be multiple worksheets or multiple lists inside of there. And as I look at a single list in there, I may find that I don't need all of the data from that data set. Perhaps there's specific columns that I just don't need. They're not relevant to my report. So I'll remove those columns. There may be some data that doesn't exist that I do need, so I may create calculated columns. I may just clean up the data because there's inconsistencies in the way the data was entered into the original source. So utilizing Power Query, I can transform or clean up that data. Now, once I've transformed it, I've cleaned it up, I then add it to my data model. I load it into Power BI the way that I want it to be. And then the next step is to create the report based off of that cleaned, transformed data. Now, inside of Microsoft Power BI, there are loads of different visualization tools that we can utilize. Now, as an Excel user, you're familiar with charts, right? We can take a set of data, a range of data, and we can quickly visualize that data inside of an Excel chart. Well, it's no different here inside of Power BI. We can say, here's my data. I want to create a pie chart. And I select the pie chart option, and then Power BI says, oh, great, you want to create a pie chart. Well, what fields do you want to use from that data source that you connected to? Drag those in, and we'll create the chart for you. Now, charts are just one of the visualization tools, and there are many different types of charts, but we also have cards, we got slicers, we got loads of different visualization tools that we can utilize to create these visual interactive reports all through Power BI. So step 1, get the data. Very important. We need the data. Step 2, transform it, get it ready for the prime time. Step 3, create the report, all the little visuals and the interactive elements. And then step 4, it's ready for the show. Because now you're going to share the report, right? You're not creating the reports just for yourself so you can sit in a corner and go through all the data, but you're creating the report so that others can quickly get in and view the visuals and interact with the visuals so that they can make quick, intelligent business decisions based off of that data. 4 little steps. Sounds pretty simple, but that's what we're going to get into. We're going to be able to take something like this right here, raw Excel data, bunch of black and white text and numbers, and turn it into something like this. we've got a nice little report with some drop downs for filtering, some cards on the left for totals, calculations, some buttons there to continue filtering by year. We've got a nice little table showing us the top 5 products within our data set. We got a chart to visualize that, and we got a nice little map showing off a specific country for us. So take that raw data and quickly get up and create something visual so that we can interact with it and make those intelligent decisions based on our data. So let's jump in and how we can take raw data, simple data, and turn it into something visual. Let's get into it. Now, before we can get in and start to connect the data and transform it and create reports and share the data, we need Microsoft Power BI loaded on your computer if you don't already have it. This is a really simple process, and Microsoft Power BI for desktop is completely free to download. So really simple to do. All you're going to need to do, open up your favorite browser window, jump to your favorite search engine, type in Microsoft Power BI. My first option there is a Microsoft link, Power BI data visualization, Power Platform. I'm going to give that a click. This will take me into the Microsoft page. And from here, I'm just going to go up to the products menu. Products, Power BI for desktop. And I grab that option there. On this page, now, depending on when you've come to this video, web pages change all the time, but just look for products, Power BI desktop, and look for the download now option. Now, when I click that button, it's going to launch the Microsoft Store for me. So I'm going to say, yes, go ahead and open that up. Now, I've already got it loaded on my system, but it is launching the Microsoft Store. This is a Windows tool. I want to point this out. So unfortunately, if you're sitting on a Mac, an Apple device, you will not have access to download and work with Power BI desktop. Okay, so get that out there. But it launches the Microsoft Store. Inside of there, I've got an open button because I've already got it installed on my system, but you're going to have a get or install button. I forget what the exact verbiage is there. But you'll hit that button and it'll take you through the installation process. So if you don't have it loaded on your system at this point, make sure you follow these steps, pause the video, finish the install, and then jump back in and we'll start to create our report. So once you've got Power BI downloaded and installed on your system, make sure you open it up. Open in front of you, I've got my copy of Power BI Desktop ready to go. When you first open up the application, you're going to be taken to a screen that looks something like mine right here. Now I say it's going to look something like mine right here. And I say that because Microsoft Power BI for desktop gets regular updates. For the most part, it gets updated every month. New features, tweaks to the software, whatever Microsoft is deciding to do to the application. So your screen might look different if you look at this video several months in the future from when I've downloaded it, but the idea is the same. So when I first open it up, I get taken to kind of the welcome page that, hey, welcome to Power BI. What do you want to do? So here for us, I'm going to look for blank report. We're going to start from complete scratch. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and select blank report. We'll give it a moment, and Power BI is going to do its thing and get ready for us to start our 4 steps. Get the data, transform the data, create the report, and then share it. All right, so once it's open here, let's get a quick rundown of the interface. So top of the screen, you've got your ribbon. You work instead of other Office applications. You're familiar with that. The right-hand side of the screen, we've got a series of panels. Right now, you can see I've got a visualizations one and a data one, which is currently collapsed. I haven't connected to my data yet. Over on the left-hand side, I've got a series of buttons that'll take you to the different views. You've got your report view, where you're actually going to create the report. You got your table view, where you can view your data sources. You got your data model view, where you can view the relationships in the overall diagram of all your data. and you've got your DAX query view, where you can create more advanced queries based off your data utilizing DAX expressions. Now, and then the middle of the screen, I'm currently in report view, so I'm looking at the canvas of my report. First thing it wants to know is, where's your data? But this is where you're going to build the report. Okay? So take a moment, you can pause the video, get familiar with the interface itself, and then we'll jump in and create our connection. All right, so we've got Power BI open. We're inside of a blank report. Let's now create our connection. Step one, get the data. So for us, we're going to be utilizing an Excel file, but I just want to point out, when you first open up a blank report, I'm currently looking at the Home tab, and here I can see a data section. And there are loads of different types of connections that we can make for different types of external data. We've got an Excel workbook, a data hub, a SQL server, a Dataverse, we got recent sources, and we've got get data, which is going to give us a drop down of several other locations or data types that we can connect to. Excel, data flows, Dataverse, analyst services, text, CSV files, and all sorts of different connection types. Now, for us right now in this demonstration, we're going to connect to an Excel workbook. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the import data from Excel. Give that a click, and it takes me to my folder. I'm going to grab the one called orders products -01. Now, I do want to point out that this file is available for you to download. Just look for the link in the description, and you can download the file from there and start to work with it here as we continue on. So pause the video, jump down below, and make sure you download the file so you can follow along with me. So, and just to throw this out there, if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying what you're learning here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get updates about new content that we paste to this channel. Also, hit that like button. Let me know if you're enjoying what you're learning here and you're learning something new. So get that file, and then we'll continue. Now, I've already got the file, so let me get back in there. I'm going to go ahead and select orders products 01, and I'll hit open. All right. Now, worth pointing out, I'm glad I did this here. My file is currently open on my computer. So I'm just going to bring that up on my screen here. There it is. Now, this file cannot be open at the moment you're creating the connection. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I close that file. I'll hit OK, and then I'll try it again. Orders products, I'll hit open. And we're now making our connection. Power BI is doing its stuff in the background. Now, right away, we're making a connection, but now we're being connected to something called Power Query. This relates to step number 2. But before we get fully into Power Query, we're in the Navigator window. I can see I've got my orders products -01 Excel file, and I've got 3 worksheets inside of there. Now, I actually want all 3 of them, but you'll notice if I select one, I get a nice little preview of it so you can see what you're actually connecting to. Let's go ahead and check all 3 of them. I want the orders, order details, and products. Now, once in my Navigator, I've selected my data source. I'm now going to connect to it. I'm going to hit the transform data. Now, difference here. Transform data is going to take us into Power Query, or step 2 of transforming and cleaning up the data utilizing Power Query. If I just hit load, it says, great, you made a connection to the data. Let's bring it into Power Query, or excuse me, Power BI. You're not going to do anything with it just yet, but let's just bring it in and make a connection to it. Okay? So for us right now, let's hit transform data to move into step 2. Now, get to that point, and then we'll jump into the next section. So we've made our connection to our Excel file. We've grabbed the 3 worksheets inside that Excel file, and we're now inside of Power Query to start transforming that data. Now, I do want to point out that once you hit the transform button, it did open a completely separate window. There's Power BI in the background, and I'm currently inside of the Power Query editor. Let's maximize that again. Now, on the left-hand side, we've got a reference to our 3 queries, all from that Excel workbook: order details, orders, and products. Now I'm currently looking at products, so the data sheet view shows me the products table. I can click on each of them here to show me the respective data that I want to look at. Now, the whole point of Power Query, if you're an Excel user, you might be familiar with Power Query because the same tool, the exact same tool, resides inside of Excel as well. So if you're familiar with it there, you're going to feel right at home. If you're not familiar with Power Query, it's a tool that allows you to create the connection to the queries, such as our Excel document and all of our tables in there, and to start transforming that data, cleaning it up, filtering, sorting, calculating, getting it ready before we start creating the report. So let's do a little bit of that here. We're not going to get too deep into it, but just to give you a taste, I'm going to hop over to orders. So let's make sure that orders is selected there. And looking through the data, I want to create a report that gets into orders and its products and the details of those orders and products together. But there's some data that I just don't need. For example, I don't care about the employee ID. I don't need it. It's not needed inside my report. So I'm going to select employee ID. I'll right click that column header and I'm going to go ahead and remove it. I don't need it. I don't want it. Let's get rid of it. Let's see, required date. Don't care about that either. I like the order date and ship date. Those are two useful bits of information I could use, but for my purposes, required date, I don't need it. Let's remove it. All right, continuing through here. I don't really need their addresses. I do like the ship name and the ship country, but I'm going to select from ship address. I'm going to hold my shift key down to ship postal code so it gets all of them, and I'm going to remove those. Remove columns. Let's get rid of all of them. Okay, so I'm just cleaning it up, getting it ready for my purposes and my report. Okay? It's something that takes a bit of time, and you're just going to decide, what's relevant for your big picture, for your report. And I can go through and do this for each of the data sources inside of my data model, inside of my queries. Now, this is just high level. There's so much you can do inside of Power Query, but remember, it's part of step 2. It's transforming your data, and it's just getting the data ready for what you need, whether that's removing columns, applying filters, sorting, calculating data, and loads of other features in here. But try this out. Let's remove some of those columns. Let's go to the orders, make sure you're on there, and let's get rid of a handful of columns there just to get it ready for our report. All right, so we've done a little bit of transforming, nothing big, but just give us a taste that this is the Power Query interface, and you're going to utilize it to transform and clean up the data. Now, moving into step 3, we now want to start creating the report. But before we can create the report, we need to load our transformed data, our Power Query data, into Power BI. This is really simple. I'm just going to go up to my Power Query interface on the Home tab, and on the far left, I've got a button for Close and Apply. I'm just going to hit the top portion of that button. We'll give it a moment here. Power Query is taking that data. It's getting it already, and it's going to load it into the Power BI interface. So now, looking at the left-hand side of the screen, I'm currently looking at the report view, and it just says, hey, build your visuals with your data. I don't have anything yet. Right below that, I've got my table view. Let's give that a click. I can now see all 3 of my tables: order details, orders, products. Can expand those out to see the fields that are in there. And I can see a preview of the data here on the left. There's my orders. I removed all those columns. There's my products. Now, once again, we could have spent quite a bit more time inside the Power Query interface, but just to quickly go through the steps here and give you a taste of working with the Power BI 4 steps. Now, I'm going to go back to let's go down one more. Let's go down to the data model interface, or the model view. Looks kind of like a little hierarchy. Here, I can see the 3 tables, but they're related in some way. So for example, inside of products, we've got a product ID field. This is the key field, the primary key field within this table. That table, products, needs to connect to the order details. So we connect through product ID to product ID. The same is true here. orders, we got an order date. That one connects to the order ID field. Now the lines aren't quite in line with one another, but if I give the line a double click here, we'll see from order details, we got order ID, to the orders table, we got order ID. So it's made the connection. It knows this order is related to these details. These products are related to these details. This is very important, and Power BI has really done a lot of the work for us and created the connections. But it's very important because when we get to the report level, it needs to know that, oh, if I grab a field from the orders table, such as the ship country, and now I want to see the products that have been shipped to that country, it needs the relationship so it knows how they're connected. So that's all that this model view is showing us here. And it's a place where we can maintain the relationships between our data. So a very important key point here. I'm going to hop back to my report view and let's start creating our report. So we're going to create a simple report here. We've connected to our data, we've transformed it. Now let's create the reports. Now on the right-hand side of our report view, we should all see a visualizations panel. Now the top portion of that is where you're going to pick the type of visual that you want to apply to your report and start to dump the data into that visual. Now let's start with something simple. Inside of here, we have one called a visual card. Mine just looks like a little rectangle with 1, 2, 3 inside of it. If I hover my mouse over it, you'll see it's called a card. Now, all I'm going to do here is just click on the card. This places a card inside of the report view or inside of the canvas, our report. So now it's telling me select or drag fields to populate this visual. So there's a few different ways that we can drop data into this card. Once I've selected the card, I've now got this section inside the visuals called fields. And it's asking me, well, what data field do you want to have show up inside that card, that visual? Well, let's say here, I just want to get a total number of orders. That's all I want, just total number of orders. So I'm going to open up the order details table. And inside of there, we have a field called order ID. I'm just going to select that, left click, drag it to where it says add data fields here, and I'll drop it. And it's now giving me a count of the order IDs, a total count of orders placed. Now, if I go into the count of order ID, this is very important here. I'm going to click on the drop down, and it's given me a series of aggregate functions that I can utilize to display that data point, in this case, the order ID. Now you'll notice that it currently says count. It's just counting. It says, oh, you've got 1,927 entries inside the order details table for the order ID. Cool, that's great. But with a little bit of information about that order ID, let's go take a look at the table view for a moment. I'm going to go to the order details and let's look at the order ID column. You'll notice, and maybe it's better here if I sort this. Looks like maybe it already is. Oh, there we go. I sorted it ascending, little drop down arrow, all sorted ascending. That there are order IDs that duplicate in there because there are orders that have multiple products attached to it. So each time there's a different product for the same order, it adds the order ID again and then assigns the product ID to that order. Now there's, what was it? 1,927 entries inside that order ID. What I want to know is how many unique orders there are. So I'll go back to my report, make sure that my card is selected. It's got the little boxes around it. I'll go back to fields, count of order ID, drop down, and I'm going to have it count distinct. Count distinct. All right, there we go. 815 total unique or distinct order IDs. Pretty cool. I'm going to resize that. Maybe I want that card over here somewhere. Now it says count of order ID. I'm going to change that. I'll just go to the field. I'll give that a double click. Let's wipe that out. I'm just going to say total orders. Enter key. And now my card has been renamed. All right. Simple little card, one field out there, and just specifying the type of calculation. Let's try one more. I'm going to click someplace empty. I'll do another card. So I'm going to select card here. This time, I'm going to grab, let's grab freight. I want to know the total amount of freight that we've spent on these 815 orders. So I'll grab freight. I'll drop that into the fields. 71,000, roughly $71,000 for freight for 815 orders. Let's change that. Let's just call it total freight. Oops. EI. Yeah. All right. Total freight. Okay, but another little card there to quickly summarize and give us something visual, a visual summary of our data. Now, these are just cards, and they're quick little calculations that you want to display inside your report. Let's try something a little more visual. I'm going to deselect the card, make sure I just clicked into an empty spot, go back to my visuals, and I'm going to grab a pie chart. Grab a pie chart, drag it over here. Now I've got a different set of fields that it's expecting. It wants to know a legend, values, and any details and tooltips. So let's say here, I still want to do freight. So I'm going to grab the freight from orders. I'll drop that into the value section. There we go. And let's say how do I want to break that up? Right now I'm getting a sum of freight. Maybe I want to do it by country. So I'll grab ship country. This is from the orders table. And I'm going to drag that into the legends section. All right, I'll resize that chart there. Oh, I did ship name. I don't want ship name. I'm going to hit the little X there to remove that. And I want ship country. Oop, there we go. There we go. That looks better. Can resize that, get all those countries to fit on there. But now I can see the percentage and value of freight for each country. Pretty cool. Now, the whole point here, ultimately, of Power BI is to create these interactive visual reports. But the even bigger picture here is we create these reports so that we can quickly get access to the data, visual interactive data, to create or to make intelligent business decisions, right? That's the whole point. We got that raw data in the background, but now we want to start summarizing it so we can start telling a story about the data, and we can quickly make those decisions looking at our report, our visuals. Well, here, I can see total orders, total freight that we spent, and I've now got it broken down by country. Well, let's take it a step further. Perhaps what we're trying to determine here is where are we spending our most freight? Is there any anomalies in that different shipping methods that we've used for freight? So I need some more data here. I'm going to deselect my chart. I'm just going to move these around, just create some space at the top. And you can decide wherever you want to put this. But inside the visuals, there is one for a slicer. Looks like a little box with a funnel on it. Right there. If you just hover your mouse over them, you'll find it. Slicer. It's essentially a filter. So I'm going to give that a click. Oh, make sure that none of my current boxes are selected. There we go. So because this box was selected, it actually turned that into the slicer. So I just quickly undid Control Z, and I've now got my individual slicer here. Let's say now I'm going to grab the ship via, and I'm going to put that into the field section of my slicer. Now the slicer doesn't look like much. I want to change that. I'm going to go over to my visualization section, and we've now got a new button here. Looks like a little chart with a paintbrush on it. I'm going to give that a click, and into slicer settings. And I'm going to change it from style between, which is what this guy is showing me here. It's giving me a range that I can set up so I can see this between this. And I'm going to change it from between to drop down. All right, we'll resize that. So now I've got a nice little filter, or what Power BI calls a slicer, to filter the results here. Now, if I go to the drop down for my ship via, it gives me 4 options. If I select a number 2, this thing will recalculate, refilter just for this shipping method of number 2. If I click on the drop down, say, no, I don't want number 2, I want number 3. Again, it recalculates to show me just the data for shipping method number 2. A quick little filter that still affects all of the other visuals inside of this report. Now remember, going back, this was all based off of this raw data, these tables, this Excel document. But just how quickly were we able to now visualize that data to start to make these intelligent business decisions for shipping? Pretty cool. Now we can take this much further. We can insert a map. We can do different types of charts. We can insert different slicers. We can introduce calculations into the mix. There's so much you can do within Power BI to visualize your data. Try this out. Get to this point. Create a couple of cards. Create a chart there for the countries and the freight amount, and create your slicer to provide the filters. All right, let's move on to step number 4. Step 1, we connect it to the data. Step 2, we transform the data utilizing Power Query. Step 3, we've created a simple report utilizing our data source. Now, the report's great, but it's not meant just for us. We're not going to sit in a corner someplace and fret over this data, right, and try to analyze it. But we're going to share with others so that they too can get in there and start to analyze our data utilizing our nice visual interactive report. Now, sharing and publishing the data, really simple to do. Take a look. So first step, I need to save our Power BI file. So I'll go to File, I'll get into Save. I got to pick a location where I'm going to save it to and give it a name. I'll just call this My Power BI Report. Okay, sounds good. And I'll go ahead and save that. We'll give it a moment, let it work its magic there to save it. Next step, once it's saved, I'll go back to File and I'm going to publish. All right, now here, I'm going to publish to Power BI. Give it a moment. I'm going to publish to Power BI and I'm going to save it to my default, My Workspace. I'll select that. I'm going to go ahead and select it. We'll give it a moment. Power BI is working all its magic, getting our report ready and publishing it to the Power BI service. And it looks like it's succeeded for us. I'm going to go ahead and hit the Open the My Power BI Report in Power BI. Might open up on the other screen. This should launch a browser window where you've now got your report online inside the browser. And through here, that's still interactive. I can still select different ship via methods, and my charts and my numbers will all update. Okay? So share your report. Allow others, your colleagues and otherwise, to get in there and analyze your data through your visual interactive report. So that's our quick introduction to working with Microsoft Power BI to 1, create a connection to our data source. Step 2, start to transform and manage that data, cleaning it up, getting it ready for your report. Step 3, create the actual report. And you got loads of different visuals that you can use there. We saw just a couple of them. We've got a chart, some cards, and a slicer. You've got loads of other visuals to help you message that data. Remember, the big picture item here is you create the report. Next thing you want to do is share it so that we can all start to take advantage of your visuals, your report, to create and make effective, easy business decisions. So 4 little steps there. Get up and running with Microsoft Power BI. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe so you get updates about new videos that we paste to this channel quite regularly. So until I see you in the next video, get busy inside of Power BI and start to create your reports.